Yeah.
Can we not have product placement?
You can if you want. So I'm not sure
It
what the
makes
kind of thing is on there. But it's not actually drenching it, it's just water.
No, but we're just the fact that we put drench there, we'll sell drench, won't it? Doesn't matter what's inside it.
Yeah. So today, me and Ethan are going to start going through Manly P. Hall's The Secret Teaching of All Ages. I kind of read a lot of it before. How did you get into Manly P. Hall?
By searching on the internet for like Masonic books.
Yeah.
And came across Manly P. Hall and Albert Pike.
Because Albert Pike, didn't he write The Golden Bough?
Dunno, Morals and Dogma.
So shall we just...
Sort of like what books were given to kind of starter initiate Masons. So what they kind of tell them is the truth.
Yeah. So it's kind of like their first scriptures, or like their kind of Bible kind of thing.
No, I don't know. I see it was just kind of an encyclopedia of just lots of, I don't know, just symbols and lots of different religions, astrology, kind of an encyclopedia of just lots of little bits.
Cool. So yeah, the format will be, we'll just, the same as I'm doing in the Bible study with my friend Brandon. We'll just read through it, and when an idea comes, we will just speak whatever ideas come into our head. I was thinking, shall we start at the preface, or shall we start at the introduction?
Start wherever.
I
tend to just kind of open it at random pages.
Yeah.
Because nothing is too much sort of like a long kind of dialogue, is it? It's just like, I don't know, each little bits are broken up into little sections about different little bits. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Just like any sort of encyclopedia.
So yeah, just start off with the introduction, and then like ramble all around. Because like I think in the introduction sets up the kind of scene, doesn't it, and what the agenda is. And then we can pick the chapters that are interesting. Like it's got some cool chapter titles. You've got the ancient mysteries and secret societies, which have influenced modern Masonic symbolism. And it's got a lot of chapters on that. Atlantis and the gods of antiquity. Stuff about Isis, the zodiac and its signs. It's got a lot of stuff in there. So yeah. Philosophy is a science of estimating values. The superiority of any state or substance over another is determined by philosophy. By assigning a position of primary importance to what remains when all that is secondary has been removed, philosophy thus becomes the true index of priority or emphasis in the realm of speculative thought. The mission of philosophy a priori is to establish the relation of manifested things to their invisible ultimate cause or nature. I can already see like the heavy influence of Platonic philosophy there, because Platonic, he believed that there was this ideal realm of forms which was behind all the apparent appearances that occur. So it's like you've got many instances of a chair, but there is a real chair, an ideal chair, which they're all kind of instances of. And he would claim that realm had more reality than this realm. Which isn't what I believe. I believe there is just this, and really what he's done there, he's kind of deified social constructs. But I think he's right in saying about how philosophy is a science of estimating values. It's like even truth. Truth itself is a value, and you find out whether or not a statement has the truth value or not by comparing it to what it's a statement about. Philosophy. Do you have anything to say?
Not really.
Cool. Philosophy, writes Sir William Hamilton, has been defined as the science of things divine and human, and of the causes in which they are contained. It's meant to be from Cicero. The science of effects by their causes, Hobbes. The science of sufficient reasons, Leibniz. The science of things possible, inasmuch as they are possible, Wolff. The science of things evidently deduced from first principles, Descartes. The science of truths, sensible and abstract, de Condillac. The application of reason to its legitimate objects, Tennemann. The science of the relations of all knowledge to the necessary ends of human reason, Kant. The science of the original form of the ego or mental self, Krug. The science of sciences, Fichte. The science of the absolute, von Schelling. The science of the absolute indifference of the ideal and real, von Schelling, or the identity of identity and non-identity, Hegel. I mean, there you get a lot of the non-dualistic terms, like the identity of identity and non-identity.
Right.
It's taking these two opposite terms, identity and non-identity, and saying that they're identical. No, I like that the part there it goes, the science of the absolute indifference of the ideal and real. I mean, Nietzsche talks about the real as having this grand indifference. I like to talk about reality sometimes as if it's like a kind of brick wall across a motorway. And you can imagine people driving towards this brick wall, and then they'll be in their heads, that shouldn't be there, it's wrong that brick wall's there, but the brick wall don't give a fuck, and you smack into it, splat, kind of thing. And that's what reality's like. So yeah, I'm following. I'm with it so far. The 6 headings under which the disciplines of philosophy are commonly classified are metaphysics, which deals with such abstract subjects as cosmology, theology, and the nature of being. The nature of being is, I think they call it ontology quite often. Logic, which deals with the laws governing rational thinking, or, as it has been called, the doctrine of fallacies. Ethics, which is the science of morality, individual responsibility and character, concerned chiefly with an effort to determine the nature of good. I mean, here I think ethics, he's right in the sense to call it a science of morality, and because the science of morality, all science is an act of discovery, so the only kind of real or kind of legitimate kind of use of morality or ethics would be in discovering what different people think of as good and bad. And then you would go out and you would study that. You would discover it from out there. But here he's saying it's like they're concerned chiefly trying to determine the nature of good. But it's like, I mean, the very fact there that he's saying it's an effort to determine, they're constructing the nature of good. And before they construct it, it's not there. But the way some people would talk about it is as if there's this good that's already there that we're discovering. And that's just bullshit. There is just the grand indifference kind of thing. Psychology, which is devoted to investigation and classification of those forms of phenomena referable to a mental origin. Epistemology, which is a science concerned primarily with the nature of knowledge itself and the question of whether it may exist in an absolute form. I would disagree with him there. I would say, yeah, epistemology is concerned with the nature of knowledge, but it's like, how do we know stuff? And how do we know that what we know is right? They're kind of epistemological concerns. And actually, no, I don't disagree with him, because then the second of those kind of things that I was saying, how do we know it's right, is asking whether knowledge exists in an absolute form. I would disagree. I would say no, it does not exist in an absolute form. It's always referable back to an individual knower. And so it's yeah, this is right or true according to this person at this time. And it's like, I mean, you can make statements like, say, now I could say that I'm sat on the ground, and that's kind of absolutely true. But once I'm not here anymore, sat on the ground, then it's just like a memory, which is a kind of fiction, and they could be falsified, and you don't know whether they're true or not. And knowledge is meant to be certain belief. And aesthetics, which is the science of the nature of and the reactions awakened by the beautiful, the harmonious, the elegant, and the noble. Plato regarded philosophy as the greatest good ever imparted by divinity to man. In the 20th century, however, it has become a ponderous and complicated structure of arbitrary and irreconcilable notions, yet each substantiated by almost incontestable logic. The lofty theorems of the old academy, which Iamblichus likened to the nectar and ambrosia of the gods, have been so adulterated by opinion, which Heraclitus declared to be a falling sickness of the mind, that the heavenly mead would now be quite unrecognizable to this great Neo-Platonist. I mean, he's giving a kind of negative view of opinion there, but he's here telling you about Plato's opinion. So it's kind of like, oh, back in the old days when not many people philosophized, there were only a few people there, a few people with opinions. And if we just kept to a few opinions, like say just Plato's opinion, it would have all been fine. But these people have had to come in and like mess up what like with their own opinions, all this kind of beautiful purity.
Right.
Convincing evidence of the increasing superficiality of modern scientific and philosophic thought is its persistent drift towards materialism. When the great astronomer Laplace was asked by Napoleon why he had not mentioned God in his Traité de la mécanique céleste. The mathematician naively replied, "Sire, I had no need for that hypothesis." I mean, and this is true. You don't need, like, even for experience itself, right, from your own individual perspective, or at least from mine, in order for experience to occur and be of interest, or to be there, it doesn't need, I don't need to hypothesize myself as somebody that's looking at it. I can just say there is experience, and that's it, and it requires no explanation. It's just there. And then you refer everything back to that. And so the God hypothesis is kind of like the ego hypothesis, that this theory we make up that there is a separate I apart from my experience, who experiences and who interacts with it. And on the upper, and so it's like you've got the I here, you've got the experience which acts like a curtain, and then you've got the God, and that's another hypothesis, like the I hypothesis, just from the other side. In his treatise on atheism, Sir Francis Bacon tersely summarises the situation thus: "A little philosophy inclineth man's mind to atheism, but depth in philosophy bringeth men's minds about to religion." The Metaphysics of Aristotle opens with these words: "All men naturally desire to know. To satisfy this common urge, the unfolding human intellect has explored the extremities of imaginable space without and the extremities of imaginable self within, seeking to estimate the relationship between the one and the all, the effect and the cause, nature and the groundwork of nature, the mind and the source of the mind, the spirit and the substance of the spirit, the illusion and the reality." He sets up all those non-dualities, and when what Francis Bacon could be pointing to when he says like a little bit of philosophy makes you think there's no God, but then depth of philosophy makes you brings you back to religion. He could be talking like kind of, for me, that I was born in a Christian family, and then as I learnt stuff, I kind of turned away from all kind of spirituality and stuff, and then I reached a point now where it's like well, this God concept can be applied to everything, and it's through everything. So there's a new form of kind of religious life or growth.
I didn't have any religion when I was growing up. Not involved in religion at all. So I called myself an atheist, but I admit it was just because I hadn't given any thought to it.
Yeah. An ancient philosopher once said, I know, but when it was talking about like the kind of to satisfy this common urge, the unfolding human intellect has explored the extremities of imaginable space without and the extremities of imaginable self within. It's like what I found through doing that exploration is that the inside and the outside are the same. It's like on the outside I have tastes, I have smells, I have feeling, like touch sensations and sights, and I hear stuff. And each one of those senses is qualitatively different from the other. You know, like smelling is not like hearing, and I can't describe the smelling experience using auditory terms. Just in the same way, we have senses which are directed towards the inside of this body, and they're just qualitatively different, like anything else is. And so you notice that there is no difference, or if there is, then that difference is between every kind of quality of sense. An ancient philosopher once said, "He who has not even a knowledge of common things is a brute among men. He who has an accurate knowledge of human concerns alone, is a man among brutes. But he who knows all that can be known by intellectual energy is a god among men." Oh man, it bigs me up, doesn't it? It bigs me up. Man's status in the natural world is determined, therefore, by the quality of his thinking. He's making an appeal to a kind of our instinct towards hierarchy and wanting to be at the top of that hierarchy. He whose mind is enslaved to his bestial instincts.
Would be a useful thing to instill in someone who you want to kind of place in a hierarchy then.
Yeah, it would be, bringing it back to masonry and what they do. He whose mind is enslaved to his bestial instincts is philosophically not superior to the brute. He whose rational faculties ponder human affairs is a man, and he whose intellect is elevated to the consideration of divine realities is already a demigod, for his being partakes of the luminosity with which his reason has brought him into proximity. See, this is why I don't really think that Manly P. Hall. I mean, he might have got it and he's playing a game here, but he's here saying, "Oh, you should be doing this, and this is what's valuable." And I'm like, but according to you, or according to this God being that you want to talk about, but not according to me, maybe.
You're free not to listen to him then.
Hmm?
You're free to not to listen to him though, aren't you?
Oh yeah, you are. Yeah. Where is it? Yeah, he whose mind is enslaved to his bestial instincts is philosophically not superior to the brute. He whose smoky man.
Oh, sorry.
It's cool. It's also quite dry as well. There's a massive fire hazard at the moment.
I'm fairly certain that this little tiny
Oh,
fire.
yeah. But did you hear about what happened at Pioneer
And even
Circle?
if it did, that would be interesting to look at, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
It would be novel. I haven't seen a
Well,
forest
as long as you
fire.
accept culpability for it, it's not my responsibility.
I'm finding what I'd have to because I was the one who did it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he whose mind is enslaved to his bestial instincts is philosophically not superior to the brute. He whose rational faculties ponder human affairs is a man, and he whose intellect is elevated to the consideration of divine realities is already a demigod, for his being partakes of the luminosity with which his reason has brought him into proximity. In his encomium of the science of sciences, Cicero is led to exclaim, "O philosophy, life's guide, O searcher out of virtue and expeller of vices, what could we and every age of men have been without thee? Thou hast produced cities, thou hast called men scattered about into the social enjoyment of life." I mean, here it's like they're talking from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, and you listen to most people when they say they're being deep or profound or clever, all that they're saying is, "I like that, I don't like this, that's rubbish, that's good, and then they're just separating stuff out, and it's like, I'm like, that's not really the deep, is it? That's just a bit shit. But essentially, what that leads to is just you're just seeking to be able to tell people, be a good boy, kind of thing. And of course, because you're defining what is good, you get control and power. But it's shallow and superficial.
Yeah, but that's how you get power.
Yeah, it is how
if
you
you
get power.
want to get power and then kind of keep it, you instill these ideas in people's minds, and then if the people, your little apprentices, have this idea that hierarchy is completely important, then they'll carry on doing it for you, and you can kind of stay up there. So
Yeah. I mean, it could be that
there's no point convincing telling people the truth if you want to kind of have one up on them.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. And that's why I said to my mate last night. Mine came back to mind for a bit. I said, I'm quite safe in what I say and do because I don't want power over anybody.
Yeah.
In this age, the word philosophy has little meaning unless accompanied by some other qualifying term. The body of philosophy has been broken up into numerous isms, more or less antagonistic, which have become so concerned with the effort to disprove each other's fallacies that the sublimer issues of divine order and human destiny have suffered deplorable neglect. See what he's saying there? He's saying philosophy is broken up into all these antagonistic kind of arguments, and it's bloody annoying because my argument's being ignored and neglected, pretty much.
Yeah, it's his idea. That was more important.
Yeah. I mean, in a sense, what you can see is that the universe or the world acts like a mind, and that mind is so clever and so good that it's able to generate all these mutually contradictory ideas and take all the possible paths to what the answer could be to these questions. And so that's what's happening. It's all being developed like that. The ideal function of philosophy is to serve as a stabilizing influence in human thought. So here, the philosophy's purpose is to control, to determine what you can think and what you cannot think. By virtue of its intrinsic nature, it should prevent man from ever establishing unreasonable codes of life, which is bullshit because philosophers have come up with all sorts of ways of life. And they've done that through the intrinsic nature of things like logic and mathematics and stuff like that. It's just, yeah. Philosophers themselves, however, have frustrated the ends of philosophy by exceeding in their wool-gathering those untrained minds whom they are supposed to lead in the straight and narrow path of rational thinking. Be a good boy, think properly! To list and classify any but the more important of the now recognised schools of the philosophy, is beyond the space limitations of this volume. The vast area of speculation covered by philosophy will be appreciated best after a brief consideration of a few of the outstanding systems of philosophic discipline which have swayed the world of thought during the last 26 centuries. So yeah, he goes in. Shall we stop for now then and go somewhere else?
Yeah.
Cool.
Fine.